Hello everybody, we are delighted to be here at the AI Revenue Summit. Thanks for the invitation to Jenny and Tally and the team at Signals. Let us introduce ourselves. My name is Andrew Hausiger. This is Jakob Newman. We love B2B and we have been wanting to be, when we were very small boys, wanted to grow up and be in B2B marketing. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Jakob. What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm head of digital experience at Greenhat. I've been here for a little over 4 years. I've been in B2B for a little bit more than 10 years.
Yep. Andrew Hausiger and I'm ex-software engineer. And I've been in B2B for over 20 years, so showing my age a little bit. This will be the only advertisement I will put up. We are from Greenhat. We are one of the leading B2B marketing consulting agencies in APAC. We have a team around 40 people servicing global and regional clients. And we do a lot of rethinking and thinking, for that matter, and produce a fair bit of research around B2B. This is a research report that is going to be released shortly. We have produced it with the research team at Sixth Sense that is headed up by Kerry Cunningham. And we swung it around this time. Instead of researching marketers and how marketers were going to market, we went and spoke to 733 organisations on the buying side in APAC to find out how they buy. And typically, buying teams in APAC have 9 to 13 members of their buying party, and they're engaging the sellers around 73% of the way through their buying journey. So that creates, as you can imagine, some real challenges for B2B marketing leaders. And it also presents the opportunity to think about how AI might be able to help in our strategy to overcome that challenge. In this talk, we will focus on some areas of B2B strategy AI is best placed to help. This is our 7-step B2B strategic framework. We've walked these steps with many of our clients, fine-tuning the process along the way. So let's look at step 1, goals and objectives, and how can AI help in developing goals and objectives? Firstly, it can help in fueling your strategic options. However, you can't get AI to build your marketing strategy for you. But
not yet.
Certainly, not yet. Yeah, we have to be careful on that. Certainly not yet. So, but certainly to feed ideas as to options that you could be considering in your strategy. The second important point is about benchmarks. So using the research capabilities of Gen AI to actually get benchmarks on the things that are important to you and things that you need to measure, and put them into the strategy and use those in your C-suite conversations. And the third part is around defining metrics that matter. So you'll have goals and objectives, but what are the specific things there that you want to measure? And AI or Gen AI will kick up a whole bunch of data points that you can measure along a journey for a customer. So you need to go through and select those through. So that's on the first step. The second step around knowing your customer. So we talk about the ICP, the ideal customer profile. So how can AI and machine learning help with that? Well, one key area is around intent data. So using first, second, third party intent data to feed into the decisions you make around what your ICP segments are. The second point is around the analysis of large data sets. So we all want to know what the characteristics and behaviours are of those accounts that we win, and also of those accounts that we lose, and to use that data to help us actually define who should be our targets moving forward.
And really, that should be based on profitability too. If we're looking at big data sets, who is our most profitable customer, and how can we find more of those customers that are similar in behaviour, similar in spend behaviour, and in the products they buy of us?
100%, yeah. Persona development's interesting. We don't use persona development tools per se, AI or ML tools. We would use it to help us supplement. We think that those persona development tools that are available today, a bit more for the B2C marketplace, looking at the psychographic side of the consumers, probably less relevant on the B2B side where we need more human insight, from research and so on to actually help us build those personas and the customer journeys out. And the final point around how AI could help in this area is around deep diving in ABM. So when we're talking about ABM, the account is the market. If it's a one-to-one, the account is the market. And I need to learn a lot about the marketplace, the dynamics of the marketplace, where that account operates in, and also the account data from the account and behavioural aspects of the account itself. So there's a few areas.
Yeah, I would add to that, it's probably more important than ever to know your customer well now. We've got all these tools in all the publishing platforms. Microsoft's doing it, Meta's doing it, Google's doing it. They're all pushing us to use AI to find our audience. And the reality is it might work for B2C. When you're selling shoes, most people might fall into that market.
Yeah.
But if you're in B2B, you need to know who your customer is. You need to understand their consumption habits. You need to know where they're consuming content and target them specifically. I would not rely on any of those platforms to run their AI algorithm over my audience and find lookalikes essentially. So we don't see a great lot of value right now in AI in those media platforms in terms of audience extension. But we do see certainly value in adding AI into the research part to really understand your audience and then use that for better targeting on the platforms.
Okay, let's talk about step 3 in the strategy, which is craft the story and map the content. How can AI help here? So firstly, analysing customer interactions and the engagement that the customer has been having with your content and your website, and even what might be collected in CRM as well, to help you understand what is of interest to them. Secondly is around researching competition. And so what is the message and the value proposition that the competition is putting out into the marketplace? And where you can, in some cases, actually track the performance of that as well, for example, with advertising and media. A third important part, AI can help with the testing, so testing of your message and your content. So we recommend applying a small budget to, it's that A/B testing type of idea to make sure that you are resonating with the right personas and the right audience. And then a fourth is a logical one around, we've all heard about the most common use case, obviously, in this area around AI is the development, the drafting of copy, and also creative, and then moving into video and audio to a lesser extent.
Yeah. So AI can really help with that at scale. If you need to produce hundreds of different variations of a banner or even ad copy, it's a great starting point to feed it in there and see what comes out. Sometimes it's good enough, sometimes it's not, and you can optimize it from there. But just being able to generate fairly low cost imagery that can be used in advertising test campaigns before you go into a more cost heavy production of high resolution proper imagery that might work better in a fully branded campaign. It's a great way to test it out and put a small budget into a campaign, see how it goes, see how the audience responds to it, make sure you test multiple variations of copy messaging, and then push that into a smaller campaign before it goes out to bigger campaigns.
100%.
So the way we can use AI in developing our messaging frameworks is really in the research phase. And this is an example of what we've been doing in developing those messaging frameworks. And we use it to look at our own messaging, look at our clients' messaging, their content, what's on their blog, what are they talking about, and how does that compare to what's in the industry media, what's on your competitor's website, what's everyone else talking about, what's trending on social media. And sometimes you can even get a view count on certain articles on industry publications. You get a sense for how popular a piece of content might be. And that can be great insight to feed into your content strategy to say, okay, here's a piece of content that resonates really well with our audience, but they're not talking to it. So how can we now shape our messaging framework to start talking to that same topic that is popular right now to our target audience? And this is where the research, really AI comes into it, and then we move into obviously human power and insight to process all that, review it, refine it, and develop proper messaging frameworks on the back of that.
Exactly. And so here's an example of a message framework we developed for a client, and in particular the third and fourth columns around the data analysis where we've used AI to help fuel that, and then the positioning, as Jacob's just said, around we really want to avoid just coming out with the same value proposition as our competitors. What's our differentiation? And so AI can gather, obviously, can trawl a vast amount of information and find out the jewels for us. And then it's obviously the humans who have to sit down and work out how that can be placed into a message framework itself. And the other really important part is competitors. So coming up with looking at the value statements and value messages from the competitors as well. So we now are at step 4 of the 7-step process: designing personalised journeys and channels. We know the audience. We've crafted our story, and we have mapped our content. And now we want to see how AI can help in personalising that to market.
Yeah, so the key thing there is using AI to analyse behaviour on large scale. So looking at open data from your emails, who's opening your emails, who's on your website, how they're behaving on the website, what content do they consume, how are they engaging with it. And that really helps us find insights we can then use to personalise content, if it's video or emails or piece of content on the website, but also down to channel selection. So really being able to identify where they're consuming content, what are they consuming, and how are they consuming it. So that's what we use to analyze it, and then that can feed all the way down to chatbots, where we can have a really seamless experience driven by a large language model that has analyzed all the content on your website and feeds that back into a chatbot. So it makes it a whole lot easier. I would call out we could even feed that into direct mail, and we do in some cases where we're using those insights to personalize down to the individual letter being sent out, and it's often an overlooked sort of tactic in B2B, but it still drives a lot of value there. So that's what we're using to analyze it, and in the end what we're trying to find is the next best piece of content and the best medium to serve that on. And like I said, it might be a video, it might be a direct mailer that goes out, but one thing we're using at Greenhead is our own AI nurture that we're running to analyze content on our clients' websites. We're running AI over their blog posts, everything on their website, and we're really analyzing that based on the persona it might speak to, the product it might speak to, the industry it might speak to, and potentially even the buying stage that piece of content might speak to. And that allows us to overlay that with their database of customers. And again, we're analyzing that database the same way, where we're saying, okay, who are these people in the database? Where are they in the buying stage? And this is where we're using things like third-party intent. We're looking at Bombora, Sixsense, Infuse, TechTarget to see what can we learn about this account, what intent are they showing in the market, and how can we feed that into our next best piece of content. So really being able to analyze the content that's already in place, looking what third-party intent is happening in the market, and how we tie that back into the existing customer database to produce that next best piece of content. In this case, it's an email that is personalized to the individual with one piece of content that the AI believes is the next best piece of content for them. And that could mean thousands of different emails for a database of a similar number, instead of having a predefined nurture stream that runs out after 5 emails and has to be redone or potentially stops.
Yes, it's a concept of I've got 10,000 people in my audience and I have one nurture campaign for everybody. We're moving away from that into a real-time dynamic environment where using AI and the process that you've just discussed, every email is different. The subject matter is different. The copy in the email is different.
Thumbnails could be different.
The thumbnails could be different. Exactly right. So now I've got 10,000 campaigns that have been generated, and it does need the integration, obviously, of the data into the automation system, into the content library, and so on. But we're seeing much improved rates of response around that level of personalisation than we do with less.
Absolutely.
Step number 5, empowering sales to win. A really important part of the B2B go-to-market strategy, marketing and sales working closely together. And I think there's some real gems in here where AI can add a lot of value, and is today. And the first, I think, is around identifying the buying stage. So there are tools out there doing predictive analytics to try and predict and estimate, if you like, what the buying stage of a particular account is. So if you think about that, there are signals that coming from all sorts of places: third-party signals, second-party signals, and the first-party signals that you are collecting yourselves. But it's not humanly possible to actually pull that together through spreadsheets and so on, certainly not in a real-time basis and even not a non-real-time basis. So that's a big one to help sales. The second one about automating early outreach. So if you think about your target audience being in tens of thousands or tens of thousands, having a machine a bot at the front end to actually automate some of those processes, reply to emails and so on, to take them to the next stage. The third one about streamlining access to information. So in big corporates, there's a lot of information around a lot of products and services and solutions. So how does a salesperson keep up to date with that? So the advent now of the internal large language model. So for one client, we're working with Embrace.io to do that, to load a whole lot of content around that organisation's its solutions and services, its customers and so on, and making that readily available to salespeople. And the last one is around kind of what I sometimes call the recommendations engine. So telling the SDR, the salesperson, what the next best action can be that they should be taking given a certain situation. So what should be the message now that you should be taking out to that particular prospect or customer? What content, potentially, and what channel?
Yeah. So when we're looking at how AI can help there, it's really drafting sales playbooks, even battle cards for competitors, and really working out how does that fit into their process and what could be the next action they could propose here, and building that into your sales process. So there's many tools out there. A lot of the sales enablement platforms now do that. They can build some of those AI features into it to produce maybe a personalized video or presentation, even take some notes just to make that selling process a bit easier, but also to look at what's worked in the past and what could you suggest here to that salesperson as a next best step for this prospect.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work with Sixth Sense, and they have done a really nice job creating sort of this conversational email engine that is driven with AI, and it allows sales teams essentially to create their own automation where they can build their own journey and nurture prospects in a really consistent and hands-off fashion. So it's a really nice way they've done it. You can see in that journey how a prospect might come in and the AI can actually send off emails. It can send off an introduction email and it will get a reply back from a prospect, and it will engage with them. It will reply back and engage them to the point where it then turns into a handover to a salesperson. And there will be some scenarios where it can't qualify them properly, it can't work out what to do, so it will put them into one of those different buckets there, and essentially worst case it hands it over to a human to work out what's going on here, and best case it might actually be this person is ready to book a meeting and move on from here.
And then you've got the transparency issue. Do you actually tell the receiver at the other end that you're a bot, or that pretending that you're actually being a real life human?
I don't think they'll respond to a bot.
Yes, well, but it's interesting. It's interesting conversation as well. So I think, the avatar idea. I think saying that I'm representing somebody is the way to go for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the sixth step in the 7-step B2B strategy, and that's about measuring what matters. So the first step, if you remember, was trying to identify your goals and objectives. Now we need to get down to the metrics that are going to be supporting that. So how can AI help here?
Yeah, so again, it can help us analyze large data sets and look for anomalies in trends, identify commonalities that we might not pick up otherwise if we just looked at it with a human eye. Running multiple combinations, some great data science platforms out there like RapidMiner, which can take multiple data sets and really test them in every possible combination in various different models to identify those trends that we normally wouldn't pick up on. So that's a really nice way to make sure your campaigns are running well, your media is running well, your leads are coming through, your website engagement is there, and it sort of all feeds into the same success metrics, I guess. And we're even using it to track customer sentiments, so looking at how are your salespeople communicating with your prospects, and how is that conversation actually going in a back and forth manner. What is the sentiment that's coming back from the prospect? And it will tell us, well, it looks really positive until this point. Maybe there's some trend there where we're seeing multiple customers drop off at the same point. Maybe it's an email that we send out through an automation that doesn't resonate well. So that's the sort of thing we can pick up there. And then obviously make changes based on that and optimize. You can't optimize unless you start testing and just trying things out. So that's really important. The other thing in there is that a A lot of the BI tools now have AI built into them. It makes it really easy to bring those insights into the wider business. If it's Tableau, Power BI, Domo, everyone's doing it. So it makes it easy to generate graphs, to generate insights, and quickly surface a dashboard for a campaign that you can share with the whole business, and everyone can sort of take part in that success of that campaign. The other thing that comes into it is really predicting future pipeline, but also things like churn risk and looking at your account health. Is this account looking healthy? Are they at risk of maybe reducing their spend? And what are the common trends we're seeing in other accounts that have dropped spend, but also the ones that have gone up in spend? So how can we take those learnings and build them into our campaigns, and maybe even into our outreach and how the salespeople engage with those existing customers, to really create something that becomes more predictable. So we're actually using machine learning in one of the BI tools at the moment, and you don't need AI to measure the obvious stuff, but what we're doing here is we're running an AI model over a data set, which then analyzes all the transactional data and can overlay that behavioral data that's coming from your email, from your website, but also third-party intent, and things like economic conditions, because in the end, that plays a big role.
Yeah, sure.
So you can't predict something and ignore those things. So that all comes into it, and you think of media spend, it's not linear. The more you spend doesn't mean you get the same output. So we need to allow for all that. And this model does that, and it continuously is evolving. The more data comes in, the more accurate it becomes. And it means we can actually then model media spend in various channels and that impact on the pipeline. So being able to change your media spend, say, okay, I'm going to spend an extra $10, $20, $50,000 into LinkedIn. What would that do to my pipeline in 3 months?
Yeah, exactly.
Being able to model that out, that's where AI can really shine and build those models for us that continue to evolve.
And moving to the next step to say, actually, well, here is my budget. What is the best mix that I should have in place? When I'm particularly talking about media and other channels for that matter as well. What should I be spending on my nurture? A bit harder to measure than a click on an ad necessarily. And to your point, there are other factors that come into play. Economic conditions, regulatory conditions, these sort of things can have an impact on what outcomes could be. So being able to put that into the model such as this, so that there can be some specific recommendations made back to the marketing leadership around which way they should be going.
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, step number 7 out of the 7 steps, defining your rev tech and your data platforms. So how can AI help? Well, there's a lot of AI platforms. There's a lot of AI tools, and it can become I was going to say it can become very confusing. It is already very confusing. Yes. Yeah. So probably our best advice is that you will have some sort of sales tech, MarTech, RevTech stack today, so tools there. And most of the vendors are looking at how they can improve the value from those platforms with AI and ML enhancements. So very much have a good understanding as to what that roadmap looks like, so that you are embracing AI and ML through there, as opposed to potentially doubling your stack by bringing in new tools.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of marketers now who pick up whatever looks shiny, and a lot of tools are collecting dust. They're getting used, for a couple of months, and then people realize it's actually too hard to keep feeding them with data, and they're not really being used. And it's not necessarily just the cost. I mean, the cost is one thing, but the fact that really it's ideally one tool or a small number of tools that you're feeding with an accurate set of data in a very well integrated fashion, rather than having tools everywhere that are reading bits and pieces out of your data stack. So I think that's really important to, it's a lot of them are low cost. It's great to go and test and try things out. But before I would integrate a tool, I would actually look at my existing stack, like you said, and talk to the vendor and say, what are you planning for the next 6 months? Is that something you're integrating that might be easier to use in there? So that's certainly an easier way to go.
Well, that's the 7 steps. So we've been able to pull out a few areas of AI in some, not all of the steps, but in some of them, where we've given some examples as to where AI and ML can help in B2B marketing strategy. But the best advice that we can really give is not to be distracted by the shiny silver object like you just talked about, but to think about understand your strategy and think about what the key challenges and blockers are in the strategy that's stopping you from getting to where you want to be, and then target those for the use of AI and ML to solve those problems, to give you the breakthroughs that you need as a business. So I hope you've been able to get some good value out of the conversation that we've had today around strategy first, and then AI and ML to follow on from that. If you'd like to contact us, Jacob and myself, there's our details on the video there, and we'd be very happy to talk further with you.